This is Jim Christian from Behind the Barricade, brought to you by Cornerstone. This is an exciting episode. If you normally just listen, you might want to find a place to watch some of the video. We're in a studio in New York City, and this is the first time we've ever done in-person podcast, and it's been a great experience. It's going to be hard for me to go back to doing it virtually. Maybe we won't. Who knows? Time will tell. But today's guest is Brent Felten from Henderson Engineering. Brent brings a wealth of experience from an MEP engineering point of view and what works and what doesn't in projects and how Henderson is improving their productivity through the use of tools. It's a great podcast today. So excited that you're here. On to the episode. Well, welcome to Behind the Barricade. We're so excited to have Brent Felten here from Henderson Engineering. He's the director of business development with Henderson. Got to know Brent over the last little bit. And Brent, you're the first guest we've had in this New York studio in person, face to face. And it's so excited to be here and have you here as a guest.
Yeah, this is pretty slick. I'm glad this worked out. What a nice setup. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in town, I'm in town, and the calendars aligned, and here we are.
Thanks for having us in. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Maybe just for those that might be listening that don't know you and your history, maybe just give us a bit of background on how you got where you are. And I know you were telling me a bit about your journey with Henderson and even before. So just tell people how you got where you are today.
I've been doing this for a long time. I studied architectural engineering in college. So
Cool.
like all the different things came out ready to run, designed mechanical systems on projects, worked with some firm in Kansas City for, about 8 years, and then got hired onto Henderson and came on board as a project manager there.
Cool.
And shortly thereafter, about a year into that time there, I was working on luxury retail projects, pretty much exclusively project managing, leading a number of accounts, Cartier and different things like that. And my boss and I were talking, we were trying to figure out how to better cover New York. We had an office in New Jersey and it was doing okay, but we weren't quite there with our clients.
Right.
And we were talking about doing a rotation where we had maybe we get an apartment in the city and we rotate one of our project managers through the office for 1 week a month and we rotate. And I'm like, that seems like a tough thing. My wife she was in a job she wasn't crazy about at the time.
Yeah.
So we were talking, I was like, what would you think about New York? We were newlyweds. And she's like, maybe. I've never been to New York. So we flew up here and checked it out. Our first time in New York was us figuring out whether we wanted to live here or not. Came back and told my boss we were up for it. So anyway, I worked here and we moved here year into our marriage and worked up here for 4 years in New York and really learned a lot about what it takes to bring projects to life in the city. And then I kind of took a new role, moved back to Henderson, led our technology group at Henderson, and I kind of then moved into a role with our retail group on doing business development, which is an interesting move, but I kind of love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was it like being a newlywed in New York City?
It was awesome. It was so much fun. We got out a lot. We explored. We adventured. Did that for a year before we started having kids. My first 2 boys were born up here in New York. I got 2 New Yorkers for sons.
Wow.
Three boys in total. But yeah, so it was great to spend some time up here, and it was our adventure. And I learned a lot. And I think most importantly, made a ton of friends. And when I come back up to the city, it's great to come up here and not stay in a cramped apartment, but stay in a cramped hotel room and then be able to go out to some nice restaurants in the company and take out some clients and basically see old friends.
Right.
And I do that a lot and try to make up here on a regular basis. It's kind of like coming home a little bit.
Do the boys that were born here consider themselves New Yorkers?
They say it.
Yeah.
We're New Yorkers. Yeah. So they're coming. I'm bringing them back up in another couple of weeks, and we're going to we do like an annual trip up here and get to go around our old neighborhood and meet their old friends here too.
That's cool. Yeah. How old were they when they left?
Like 3 and 1/2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So little memory.
Not too much.
Not too much. But you're keeping it alive.
We tell the stories. They fresh as show them pictures.
Yeah.
As if they were remembered.
This podcast is all about productivity in construction. Despite all of the improvements in technology and all that's been going on, when we looked at it, the productivity in construction has kind of been flat for a couple of decades. And we really felt we would explore that with people that were real life on the street, getting things done and having success and having maybe some challenges along the way. So we really like to explore with you, maybe it's a recent project, maybe it's something back in the archives of what you've been involved with where you really felt there was productivity breakthroughs and kind of what the secret sauce was to when things went really well. And as an engineer, you're in early, but you're there through the whole process. So you have any stories that you'd like to share where you saw a breakthrough in productivity?
Well, I've been at Henderson for about 13 years now. I can't remember exactly what number of employee I was in the 300s or somewhere around there, maybe 400. But we're a little over 1,100 now. A lot of things have changed. We're coming into a new kind of strategic planning session, like first or 5 year stretch now. But the last stretch was kind of interesting because it was really focused on how do we get better at what we do. It became tougher to hire quality talent out in market, more challenging. And we really focused, if we're going to grow, we got to figure out how to do more with the same number of people. So over our last cycle, we really spent a lot of time investing on processes internally, getting better at what we do, being able to do more with the same number of people. We actually grew in revenue and overall top line revenue with the company quite a bit and didn't really grow. We hit that kind of 1,000-person threshold and kind of stayed there for a while, but our total revenue kept growing because we figured out how to do a little bit more with the same number of people. I don't know what I attribute to a single thing, but a lot of individual changes that kind of got us there. And so it's been a venture. We're still exploring how to do more with less, how to be a little leaner, how to shift our resources to where we do more things through automation or whatever, so we can get more time with our clients and get that more face-to-face time where we're actually doing more high-value consulting work and actually providing that side. So that's where we're shifting things a lot now, and we're spending more time focusing on looking for those opportunities to be, having a conversation with a client, figuring out how to help them rather than just like crushing out a set of drawings.
Right. So what would be the top 2 or 3, 4 things that you have implemented to get that kind of productivity up in your firm?
Good question. I mean, I was project manager at Henderson, like I said, and I'm not sure it was a great one. Well, it's interesting, tie it back to a story about moving to New York. I had a team of designers that was working with, and then I had less than about a year under my belt working with this group, and I was still figuring out how to really be a project manager. It's my first role really as a true project manager. I did some project management before, but then I moved up here, and my team was still kind of remote before we really got good at remote working.
Right.
And so I was away from them. And I think maybe we're better at that now, but like it used to be a challenge where I'd give it, here's what we need to do, here's what we need to accomplish. And things would come in, things always come in late, changes, we could respond to things quickly. And without knowing, I'd come to some of the team members and I'd be like, hey, can you tackle this? Without being present with them, I couldn't have a vibe for how busy they were, whether they were going through something, whether they were stressed out, and among other things. But it was tough. It was tough being a remote back in that setting. I think we're a lot better now at remote. Everyone's adapted to remote work and collaboration from a distance, and maybe there's an extra communication. But we've implemented. We were ahead of the game a little bit of that with remote work and getting people ingrained. So from a standpoint of project management, then in our company versus where we're at now, and where all of our project managers, the tools they have. We used to be, we'd get assignments, get tasks, we'd have scheduling software internally that we had built. People were responsible, just here's the deadline.
Right.
You're responsible for it. And they had their own task lists and things and procedures they had to go through. A lot of our processes are standardized.
Right.
So we're like, you make sure you walk through the same steps, you're doing the same things in the same order. And you get to kind of like choose your own adventure a little bit in terms of working between projects and, pushing this along and then moving over to push this along. But we have project management software that helps you make sure you're staying on task, make sure you know where the clear deadlines are, and there's visibility to the project manager from the design staff.
Right.
It all helps. So it's a tremendous amount in helping everyone, seeing if everyone's keeping up with where they should be in a process, and more communication, more visibility through that. That's a big step.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're able to look at that from a dashboard point of view. Is somebody overloaded? Is somebody got capacity? That's
and we had some good homegrown tools that we'd used, of course, but none of them were really broke down into tasks within projects. It's move things along throughout the course of the project and see where's that person, how's that person progressing through. You kind of said, you do the check-ins, you say how you getting along, how everything's working, kind of see what you're working on. But you have a lot of that in the background. You can see where people stand. And then when you go and have those conversations, you're already informed on those. It's good. It doesn't eliminate the conversations. It doesn't eliminate the touch points to see how people are doing, but it creates the more visibility. You can kind of see what everyone's doing across the board.
So when you think of the actual projects that your team is on and with the improvements you've made, how are you seeing those improvements impact the productivity of the project itself as a project partner in the project? What are you seeing the impact is on users' experience, the other people that are working on the project? What's happening on that front for you?
I mean, increased responsiveness, without a doubt. we put a priority on that. So we're focused on like, we may not have the answer right away, but you're getting back to the client. You're letting know you're on top of things right away.
Right.
And then you can set things in motion quicker and get the task in the right person's hand in their queue, and they can work towards prioritization of tasks a little clearer because they have visibility to everything that's on there. There's less likely for things to slip through the cracks. We don't get as many calls on like, here's this thing. And someone's like, oh, I forgot about that.
Okay.
Forgot about that's not really a thing is too much anymore. It might be I haven't got to that thing yet because it doesn't remove the workload, but forgetting about that thing is off someone's radar. It doesn't happen as much as I think it used to back in the day.
When we used to have little scrap pieces of paper, or sticky notes on our screen.
The sticky note didn't fall back behind the monitor somewhere.
That's awesome. And how are you seeing that impacting your relationships in the projects with these new tools that you've had? How's your collaboration? Is it improving as well with your partners?
I think about this in terms of like almost every tool we implement. Generally speaking, our clients don't see it. They don't have visibility to it.
Right.
I feel it. They feel the difference. We're able to put more people forward in the process. We have different roles and different positions on projects. We generally have a project manager over working on that passes through the doors. We also have project coordinators and project admins that are layered in on some of our larger projects or programs. And it helps add some capacity to our project managers where, that project admin, a project coordinator can jump in and they can work with the tools they have. They can be quick to respond and they can push things along. And our clients love that. And a lot of times we're using, even in those roles, some people that are from outside the industry that have come in. Maybe those people that are just like really highly organized. I think we have some really good project managers that have come through our door that don't have a background in AE. Background, but they're incredibly organized. And so that's a shift in focus as well, along with the tools, the process. I talked to you earlier about having struggles, maybe finding everyone to fill all the roles.
Yeah.
We've looked a little bit outside the box in that regard and brought in some people that, project management is a discipline. It's you preach at the choir here, right?
Yeah.
Within our walls, you have to take a special set of skills. It used to be, you're a great designer, let's promote you into a project manager.
Yeah. Maybe
you're a great project manager, we'll promote you into a team leader. Those, the skills don't necessarily translate unless you foster them and you pick the right people and you nurture them. But we're bringing in some new people in new roles, and that's something we've pivoted a little bit about over the last 5 or 6 years.
One of my trainings decades ago was the worst thing you can do is take your best salesman and make him the sales manager, because generally they don't have the same skill sets that need to be a manager as they do to make the sales.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
Was it the Peterman principle, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So with all your experience, all the projects that you've been into over the years, maybe frontline or maybe even just from afar managing them, when you see a project not perform, where schedules are slipping and budgets are ballooning and the unhappiness score is going up in the project, do you have any sense, maybe there's a specific thinking of, or maybe just kind of overall, like, what do you feel the one or two things are that would make a project go offside that way?
Yeah, I was thinking about that honestly a little on my own as I was on flight up here. We're coming up here. We're doing part of what we're doing in town in New York here is that we're doing a tour around SoHo retail
That's
spaces.
cool. Yeah.
It's gonna be great. It's in collaboration with RDI. But I was looking at a map that we put together for a bunch of projects we worked on in SoHo over the years, and I had some people comment and reach out to me separately, just like, oh, I remember this project. Friends of the past, like. And there's been a few projects down there. I remember we took space over for us. It's like a outdoor sporting goods retailer down there. It might have been the same. Wow. Nothing's wrong with an as-is lease, right? But if you know what the as-is the condition is that you're buying into, but we had to basically we got in there, we started looking at things. We had to upgrade everything. We had to upgrade fire alarm system from the existing condo building above and put in a new fire alarm system. And then we had to end up updating some of the fire alarm system for the building because it wasn't compatible. So we had to go back and replace the system and replace some of the common area spaces. We had the HVAC systems they inherited, they thought they could reuse. They weren't designed for the load or the outside air requirements of the space.
Wow.
The sprinkler was inadequate. Every single discipline we touched, we try to reuse as much as possible when that's desire.
Right.
They just couldn't on space, and they didn't have it right. They didn't know that. They didn't plan on it. They didn't. So every single thing on that project was tough. And we talk often in the industry about getting involved early and things. And I don't want to be cliche, but the earlier, if we could have came and just walked the site with the client before they signed something and said, hey, what do you think about this? they may have still taken the space, right?
But
But they would have known before going in. It's like, these are some line items you might need to carry or revisit. Everyone has a boss, right? Like, in this process, we
do.
answer to someone answer. Well, the people we're working with are generally reporting through the organization to someone else. The best thing we could do is arm that person with something that says, you know what, before they get into it, this is what success looks like. We have to account for these things. And if we could help them in that regard, they're going to have a better holiday, I think, at the end of the year.
It seems to be a common thread that we keep hearing in this podcast is the power of due diligence before the project launches. Like, get in, turn over the stones, look for opportunities, look for risks. But it's a hard lesson that we all have learned multiple times, I'm afraid.
I get it. Well, it's interesting too, because you look at a new retailer or a retailer that's launching, maybe they're coming over from Europe and they're putting in their first space in the US. Or maybe they're an online retailer and they're launching their first physical brick and mortar space. Where do they put those? They don't put a mall in whatever. They put it in SoHo or Fifth Avenue. They put it in a tough place to build. And they put it, and they which is understandable. They want to test the market. They want to make a splash. They want to have a little bit of a billboard for brand. To build their brand as well. But the expectations aren't always there that align with what they need to go into. I have some great clients that a lot of them have it built into. They understand that costs go into it. But I understand that like bringing on a full team to go look at this space and this space and this space and this space all together is a lot of work and coordination, and there's some associated with that. But I generally think it's a penny well spent, compared to the overall budget and what you're going to end up spending on the project.
It's an investment that has to be made if you want improved chances of success, right? Like, we look at it that it's up to them whether they take the space, but they need to know. They need to know if there's opportunities to reuse stuff or if there's opportunities or risks that everything's going to have to be new.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with some great partners in the architectural side. And we've walked through a space and there's been a major challenge. I call them in the center of the space or whatever, right? It's like, you can do anything for enough money, right?
Yeah.
Can we eliminate that column?
Not really.
not really, but turning those challenges into design features, find a way to integrate it into the design, as long as it's not an afterthought, as long as you're not like trying to deal with those challenges after. Everything costs later. Everything
costs more.
I mean, we have an acoustics team at Henderson, and that's one of their favorite sayings is like sound remediation is a lot easier in design than it is in construction, things like that. So but that's true of almost everything we do. It's a lot easier to address it on paper beforehand before everybody gets out there swinging hammers.
Yeah. Virginia Grant, who was on the podcast, we were with her last night, and she had this in the podcast. The easiest part of the project should be when we break ground. Like, the work should be done before in pre-construction, and it does pay big dividends. And if you don't do it, there is a cost potentially.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get away with it, but sometimes you don't. More often than not. So you've got a lot of exciting things going on at Henderson, and you have your eyes on a lot of different things going on in the industry right now. But if you were wanting to share some insights with anyone who's listening that's in the industry, what do you think we should be paying attention to from a productivity point of view as an industry? Where do you say, oh boy, we need to really be focused on this, or this is a sleeping giant that we need to wake up? Is there anything that you think about?
Yeah, there's so many things that are like keep me awake at night, I guess, in that regard.
Okay. Yeah.
But I guess one thing that we talked a little about earlier was people nature of the industry we're in and the investment in some of our individuals. And hear a lot where there's some negative talk about the generations that are entering the workforce now. But I'm actually pretty high. I've seen some great things about some of the new team members that have come into our space and the things that they bring into the industry and the perspective they bring. There may just be some shift in priorities, alignment outside of work and different things like that. But when it comes to the way they approach projects, some sharp people entering the workforce. But like, I see a lot of the shifts in the way we're using those tools and the way we're building our workforces, and not to turn this into AI conversation, because I talk enough about that on other things. But but as things trend in those directions, we need to figure out real solid career pathing and figuring out how to how to work through and have a new hire that comes into our organization at different levels and with different skill sets, and how we work on finding a future home for them in our organization at different points based on their different skill sets. I think that's going to be a pivotal thing for our success of our organization as we start to shift, as we start to automate some of our behind the scenes processes, as we start to work through focus on consulting roles with our clients. Because, we're getting hired. Henderson's being brought into problems on our projects.
Right.
Sometimes it's tough for us to compete when they just want to crush out a set of permit drawings last
Right.
minute, but we do well in that space. We have teams that excel in that space, but really our bread and butter is complicated spaces and being able to walk clients through complicated, how to execute complicated spaces and give them options and say, this or this. Those individuals, that's a skill, but it's a skill that's usually nurtured.
Right.
You don't usually have someone coming out of college that's able to provide that right away. So how do we introduce people into our workforce when some processes are automated? And how do we get them to a point where they can have that consulting role years down the road? What are they doing in year 1, 2, and 3 that's going to position them to be that person as they move into a leader in our organization?
Yeah.
So that's something we're trying to work on. And it starts with who you hire, but also starts with what you do when they get inside the walls.
It takes a lot of energy, but over the years, it'll bear fruit, right? Like you figure out that dynamic and what are their skills and how you're going to move them along. Right?
Well, it's a big investment too. Like it's a big, in training. Yeah, there's some, but it's, has to do with, what happens if you train the people and they leave, or what happens if you don't train them and they stay.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great quote.
But, that's something that I'm concerned about, but I think we're starting to take the right steps on it. We've had good training programs inside the walls, but we're going to need to invest more in that as we move forward. That's something I'm keeping my eyes on. I think it's the same. I think the contractors and working with the architects, partners and vendors are seeing the same thing in the industry. I think they're seeing similar challenges. I hear that from contractors I talk with about them, how they onboard people and how getting people to move into their industry is it's tougher and tougher and tougher, and trade skills. And
the trade skills is a whole other topic to try to figure out how do we do the actual work.
Yeah. Talk about prices going to our projects. Is that something that's gonna something to keep our eyes on? But
yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday and they had this line. I really thought it was an interesting paradox that we have to hold chaos in one hand and structure in the other hand. And when I'm working with younger people, I feel they need a lot of training in that things aren't black and white sometimes, that they want the structure, but we live in a world of chaos, like on projects, that there's just unknowns, there's surprises, there's things that we have to figure out. As you said, you're brought in because there's a problem. We got to solve a problem, right? And it's a mindset that we have to continually nurture and grow.
I've always been a big fan of Union Square Hospitality and Myers Group, and
awesome.
I'm wrapping up the last few pages of Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, it's a great book, isn't it? Yeah.
But there's a lot of stories in that book that have to do with a slightly different balance, but it reminds me of that balance with like managing the chaos, managing the energy, managing the creativity side of what we do, managing the structure and the organization on that side. And it's like, it's a balance. It is a balance.
And they both have to be there. They both have to be there. Yeah, it's cool. Any kind of final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share on productivity and construction, Brent, before we wind up?
Well, I think, we all have something to learn from one another. I've learned some things from just listening to your podcast and some
you're very kind.
things I've shared. Definitely, even just you and I talking, put a more keen eye as I start to approach things. It's like, what can I extract from my daily life that would be valuable to even pass along conversation? Right. It's a great conversation. I don't think enough people are focusing on that process improvement and how we get better in our industry from that aspect. So I think you have a great show here, a great podcast. Thanks for inviting.
Oh, you're welcome. And the premise or the line that kind of we sit on is we're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So we're trying to keep people green and growing. Well, if people wanted to connect with you, Brent, what's the best way to link in with you?
Yeah, I'm on the LinkedIn, right? I have an account there. So find me, Brent Felten, Brent.Felten, Felten at HendersonEngineers.com is my email address.
Cool.
Go out and find me. Let's connect. Let's talk. Let's do some business together.
Yeah. So Just as we wind up, I just want to remind people that you are the famous Brent Felten from Henderson that was on the billboards in Vegas at the ICSC show. In the
AI might have had a little help with that, but yeah.
I thought it was all legit. First moment I saw it.
Well, I looked at like an older version of me that maybe put on a few pounds, and maybe my older brother, the hired actor or something like that. But yeah, it is a good rendition of me. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. Thanks for being our first guest in the studio in New York City.
Yeah, I might not leave. I might stick around.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get another bottle of water and hang out for a little bit. So
Let's do it.
thanks for coming in and appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot, John.
Take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I certainly did. It was great to have Brent right in front of me and had this conversation with me. There was a couple things that really stood out to me when you think about productivity and Brent's insights. One was that we have a responsibility of people in this industry to grow our people and give them the tools that they need to increase their effectiveness and efficiency. And I love Brent's idea about how we have to have a growth track for new people coming into the organization, give them an idea what the future could hold for them, but also equip them with the tools to allow them to improve in their productivity and the way they execute projects. It was really insightful to hear how they have grown their productivity through tools without growing their staff base, and how even that's possible in a large organization. No matter what your size is, there's opportunities to do that. The second thing is a thread that tends to be in a lot of the episodes, this idea of due diligence and how important it is to do it well so that we don't get started in a project and discover problems along the way. I love Brent's ideas. The reason we're being called in is because there's a challenge at the start. But the sooner we could get started in due diligence, the pre-construction, before the lease is signed. Sometimes these leases look great on paper, but is as is condition, but they can be riddled with challenges. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please make a comment, like either on the platform that you're listening to it on or watching it on, or on LinkedIn. That's the way the podcast grows, how we can get this message out. These are real life stories with real impact that people need to hear, and we're dedicated to doing it. At Cornerstone, we're dedicated to creating a better journey for our clients, staff, project partners, and ultimately the world. And we really feel that this podcast is a way that we can serve the wider construction community. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.